What's up everybody, I'm Duncan Deep, and this video is very different from what I normally do, so please bear with me, but this is something you guys asked for. I wasn't sure I wanted to do it, I've procrastinated, I've pushed it back, but I'm finally doing it. This is the deck breakdown of my Magic the Gathering deck. Now, I have not been playing Magic for very long. I only started in this recent release, the Shadows release, and I was basically bullied into it by the local store owner and my girlfriend Beryl. They really wanted me to play. Beryl's been into it a long time ago, and she wanted to get back into it. Andy wanted me to play because he owns a card shop and he wants me to spend money there. And also, he's a great guy and he wants to have fun, obviously. Like, you know, it's not just for the money. But I'm going to be breaking down my deck because I've done something that's very different from anything I've been able to find online. It's very different from anything I've seen. It beats a load of the meta decks. It loses to one of them too, but it beats a load of the meta decks really handily. And it's a lot of fun to play too. So what we're doing is the deck is called Cluelamog, and it's to do with clues and big Eldrazi creatures. And we're using the clue generation and clue sacking to get a lot of value out of those clues. And everything in our deck, we're trying to get as much value as possible out of it, as well as getting a ton of card draw to generate that card advantage. This is a Selesnya deck that is green and white, for anybody who doesn't know the names. I only know Selesnya because that's what I'm playing. And I am running a lot of creatures in this deck, but we're going to start with our land base. So the land base is 7 forests, which is very simple, 7 plains, then 3 of the Canopy Vista. This is a land that enters tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. I wanted to run 4, but then I wasn't often getting the 2 basic lands out when I needed them, and this deck has a lot of early game play. We're also running 4 Fortified Villages. I find it easier just to reveal a land from my hand, and then play it untapped, and then use it instantly, than to have 2 basic lands out. And finally, we're running 3 of Westvale Abbey, which is a win condition for this deck, and it's a very important thing to keep in mind while you're playing this deck. I lost a game at the Grand Prix because I didn't realize I had a Westvale Abbey out, and I could have won the game 5 turns, and it ended up going to a tie, actually. The 5 turns ticked down, and then it was a 0-0 or whatever, and it ended up being a tie. Anyway, we're going to move on to the creatures in this deck, and I'm going to break them down one at a time. First things first, Thraben Inspector. 1 drop, 1/2. That's fantastic. And it generates a clue. So for 3 mana, you can instantly crack that clue and draw a card. Or you can be using that clue to get all of the value that we will be talking about later on. So a fantastic card. Wouldn't do without it. Next up, we have Thalia's Lieutenant. Almost every creature in this deck is a human, except for the really, really big creatures, which I'll get to later. So it's awesome to have Thalia's Lieutenant, especially since we are generating so many humans onto the battlefield that the Thalia's Lieutenant, can just tick up very, very quickly to become very, very powerful. And I've won games just with Thalia's Lieutenants. Next up, we have Tireless Tracker. This is one of the biggest clue engines in the deck. Every time you play a land, you get a clue. This does stack, so if you've got multiple ones out, you will get multiple clues. And it's a self-fulfilling combo, because when you sacrifice those clues, you get a 1/1 counter per clue you sacrifice on your Tireless Tracker. Finally, in the smaller creatures, we have the Briarbridge Patrol. This is the crux of our combo. This is the card that I saw, and I decided I like this card, and I'm going to find a way to break it, because not only does he generate clues when he fights creatures, when he does damage to a creature, he also has an effect, or she, also has an effect, that when you sacrifice 3 or more clues in a turn, you get to put a creature from your hand straight onto the battlefield during your end step. Now, that is a crazy ability when you think about it, because there are some huge creatures that you can be dropping with this ability. And the creatures I decided on were the big Eldrazi. So first up, we've got Kozilek, the Great Distortion. An amazing card. You don't get the cast effect unless you cast it, but there are ways to cast these Eldrazi with this deck as well, so you can keep that in mind. He will allow you to draw up to 7 cards if you cast it, but if you're just placing it with Briarbridge Patrol, you don't get an effect. What you do get is his other effects of Menace, so they need 2 creatures to block this huge 12/12, and the amazing ability to counter any spell just by discarding a card in your hand that has the same mana cost. This deck has a huge range of mana costs in it, a lot of 4-ofs, a lot of stuff that we don't mind discarding, so it's a great ability to have. Next up, we have the Void Winnower. Void Winnower is an amazing card. It is a win condition in itself. It shuts down so many decks. Control decks really don't appreciate not being able to play those even mana cost spells. Token decks really don't appreciate the fact that they cannot block with any of their tokens, because no creature with an even converted mana cost can block, and tokens have a 0 mana cost, which counts as even. So green-white tokens, which is one of the most popular decks right now, really doesn't appreciate having a Void Winnower on the other side of the field. And finally, we have Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. That's what this deck is named after. It is Cluelamog after all. Ulamog's an amazing card. If you manage to cast him, he does exile 2 permanents just like that. Nothing they can do to stop it. You can really choose to get rid of very, very powerful cards, or you can eat away at their land. Fantastic card to play. But if you don't cast him, if you do summon him with Briarbridge's special ability, then you don't get that effect. But what you do get to do is have an indestructible 10/10 that every time it attacks, mills 20 cards from the top of your opponent's deck into the graveyard, or into exile even. And that is a fantastic thing to do because it basically puts them on a 3-turn timer. You attack 3 times, they lose the game, they're going to be milled out. Fantastic engine there for milling cards. Finally, we have 2 of Dragonlord Dromoka. This is because my deck was a little weak to flying and a little weak to control, and Dragonlord Dromoka covers both of those by being a creature that cannot be countered, and not only can it not be countered, it also prevents your opponent from playing any spells during your turn. Fantastic against blue. This deck was a little weak to blue. After putting Dragonlord Dromoka in, there was a lot less issues. Now, I know that people are going to be saying that 2-ofs and 1-ofs in this deck, how are you going to be drawing them in order to play them from your hand with Briarbridge? We will get to that in a minute, so please be calm, because now we're going to talk about the artifact in this deck. We've got 1 artifact, well, actually we've got 3 of it, legendary artifact called Tamiyo's Journal. Tamiyo's Journal is a card that generates a clue at the beginning of your upkeep, every single upkeep. It costs 5 mana, but we can easily get that out turn 5, turn 4, even if we draw another one of our cards. But turn 5 is very, very common, Tamiyo's Journal. It's generating that clue every turn, and we're getting a lot of value out of our clues. We're ticking up our tireless trackers. We're doing a lot of other stuff. And when you tap it and sacrifice 3 clues, you can go through your deck for any card you want. So, if I have a Briarbridge out and I tap Tamiyo's Journal, sacrifice 3 clues, costing me 0 mana to sacrifice those clues, I then get to tutor through my deck, look for any card I want. Oh, I want Void Winnower out. I'm going to take Void Winnower out my deck, play it straight to the battlefield. This is why I don't care that I don't have 4 of my big creatures, and I won't be drawing my big creatures. I almost don't want to draw my big creatures because they'll be dead draws until very, very late in the game, and I can just pull them out of my deck with this combo. So Tamiyo's Journal, Briarbridge Patrol is the crux of one of our win cons, which is the combo of putting these creatures out sometimes as early as turn 4, and I will show you how that happens at the end of this video. Next up, we have our instants. We have Dromoka's Command, a 3-of. I wish it was a 4-of, but there really wasn't space in the deck. I've been cramming as much clue generation stuff into this deck as I can, and it really, really didn't fit 4, but I managed to squeeze 3 in there. Dromoka's Command, an amazing card. It's got so much value, so many things it can do. You put 1/1 counters on something and then make it fight something and kill. You can make Briarbridge Patrol fight something that does damage to that creature. You get a clue and you kill it, and you put a 1/1 counter on something. Or you can force your opponent to sacrifice an enchantment and then make a fight, or any combination of the 2 things. And finally, removing all damage from 1 instant of your choice is just a fantastic thing to do. Instants do deal with us quite badly, and it's nice to be able to deal with those lightning axes and things like that. Moving on to our enchantments, we have loads of enchantments in this deck. We've got 9 whole enchantments. We have 3 of Cryptolith Rite. This is what I was talking about, getting Tamiyo's Journal out turn 4 and getting our combo off turn 4. Cryptolith Rite allows you to tap any creature for mana. So long as they're not summoning sick, they can be tapped. If you can tap them, you can tap them for any color of mana. This is a fantastic tool in this deck. It really, really works. It's how we're able to also cast our big creatures naturally, not just with the combo, but it's used all the time. Cryptolith Rite is a great turn 2 play. It's our on-curve turn 2 players to play Thraben Inspector turn 1, Cryptolith Rite turn 2, then tap the Thraben Inspector, which we just played the turn before, for another white to play a second Thraben Inspector. That is like the perfect first 2 turns. I've managed to pull that off a couple of times, and it feels great. Next up, we've got a 4 of Ulvenwald Mysteries. This one is a 4 of because it stacks, unlike Cryptolith Rite. Ulvenwald Mysteries is a fantastic card. Every time one of my creatures dies, and I've got a lot of creatures, it generates a clue. Every time I sacrifice a clue, and I sacrifice a lot of clues, it generates a 1/1 white human soldier, who then, with Cryptolith Rite, could be tapped for mana. So it's generating these soldiers, which are blockers. They're also mana. They're also good attackers. They also are human, so they tick up our Thalia's lieutenants. It's just an amazing thing to be able to do. Huge combos there, and a lot of those combos come out of Ulvenwald Mysteries. Having 2 or even 3 of them out on the battlefield can be a win con on its own. Finally, we've got 2 of Gryff's Boon. As I said, we're a little bit weak to flyers. It's nice to be able to put something in the air with +1, and also it's a win con if we manage to put a Tireless Tracker or a Thalia's Lieutenant in the air, get it up to a 20/20, which I have done before, and then swing for 20 in the air, and they've got no flyers. That's victory right there. Right, with the main deck sorted, we are going to quickly touch on the side deck. A lot of stuff in the side deck to deal with our worst matchups. We're quite weak to black-white control, so I've got stuff in there for that. I've got stuff in there for beating the token decks and similar. So first off, we've got a one of Archangel of Tithes. It's nice to search through your deck, pull out Archangel of Tithes, put it on the battlefield, force your opponent to pay mana to attack you. Really, really good against token decks as well, because they have to pay the mana to block as well. And it allows you to sweep away a lot of opponents. Only a one-off though, because we do have Tamiyo's Journal to tutor for it. And it's really not that much of a win con, so much as a way to stop them winning turn 6 and 7. Sigarda, Heron's Grace, is amazing because it makes me hexproof against Grixis control, against any red deck that's spell heavy, against any blue-red, I don't know what that one's called. It's very, very good. Sigarda's Heron's Grace is great because it makes me hexproof, which means that I can't have spells cast on me, I can't have abilities targeting me, and it also makes all my humans, and you've seen how many ladies we have in this deck. By the way, every human in this deck is a lady. Thraben Inspector, Thalia's Lieutenant, Tireless Tracker, and Briarbridge Patrol are all female, which is awesome. Loads of ladies in this deck who get protected by Sigarda, Heron's Grace, protects all humans, makes them all hexproof, forcing your opponent to remove Sigarda before they remove any of your humans. This generally subs in for my Dragonlord Dromokas. In our instance, we have Celestial Flares. This is against other decks or against green-red ramp that is going to be pulling out their Ulamog. It's lovely for them to pull out their Ulamog. They play it, they get rid of 2 of my permanents, whatever. Then they attack with Ulamog, and I go Celestial Flare, sacrifice that attacking creature. Amazing card for ramp, which really isn't that bad of a matchup for me, but I do like to have it there as a backup in case I get bad draws elsewhere. Next up, we have 4 Eerie Interludes. Eerie Interlude is a life-saving card. We have a lot of cards that have effects when they enter the battlefield in the Thraben Inspectors and the Thalia's Lieutenants, so this lets you repeat those effects, and it lets you dodge that black-white control. Terrible matchup for us until we put the Eerie Interludes into our deck. We sub the Eerie Interludes in for Gryff's Boon, often for Dromoka's Command against black-white control, because Dromoka's Command is no good against black-white control. We sub the Eerie Interludes in, they play Languish, we respond with Eerie Interlude, we pull everything off the table, their Languish goes off, kills nothing, they all come back to the table, triggering their entry effect. If you've got 5 humans, you pull them all off the table, pull them all back in with Thalia's Lieutenant, they're all getting a +1, and Thalia's Lieutenant's getting a +5. Awesome, awesome card. Then we have the Might of the Masses. This is more of a finisher card. This is against people who don't like to play creatures and are trying to just control me from attacking or tap stuff. It's nice to be able to, we got 1 attack through, we're going to Might of the Masses, and we have 25 tokens on the field. All of a sudden, huge damage getting through. Honestly, though, I haven't subbed it in many times. It's just a filler card, basically. Sorceries, we have 2 of Declaration in Stone. Great card, exiles creature. Really, really nice again against those ramp decks. Really, really nice against decks that are getting out huge creatures. Just an amazing thing to have as well for getting rid of tokens in token matchups. Although, as I've said before, we have a great matchup against tokens. We normally win game 1, and then we put Declaration Stone in, and we're definitely winning game 2. Then we have our Planeswalkers. These Planeswalkers are really nice because they allow you to bluff the green-white tokens. It's Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, and Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. You put 1 of each in your deck, you search for them with Tamiyos, you put them on the field, or if you're lucky, you draw them earlier, put them on the field, and your opponent is instantly going to start treating you as if, oh, maybe the first game he didn't get any of his Planeswalkers, but he's actually a green-white token deck with a bit of a twist. You know, clues aren't the priority. And they are also great for gumming up the boards with tokens, which you can then tap for mana with Cryptolith Rite. Okay, so I've rambled on here for over 10 minutes just about the cards in the deck. Let's talk about our win conditions. Our win conditions are very simple. Build up clues, sacrifice 3 clues, put a big creature on the field, and win. But there are other ways for us to win. Westvale Abbey is a huge win condition. If we have 5 1/1 white soldiers on the field, we can tap, and Cryptolith Rite, we can tap the 5 for mana, sacrifice the soldiers we just tapped for mana, flip Westvale without tapping a single land, which is fantastic. Ormondal is a win condition in many, many, many decks. Our win condition against many, many, many decks. Indestructible, Haste, and Lifelink. Fantastic card. Fantastic win condition. We've also got another win condition in just Cryptolith Rite. Loads of weenies. Tapping all those weenies for our big, big creatures. Pulling them out and winning. And finally, we can just tack up Thalia's Lieutenant and Tireless Trackers to huge numbers. Put a Gryff's Boon on them, put them in the air, or even not bothering putting them in the air, just swinging for huge damage and killing the opponent very early. I'm going to briefly now explain to you the perfect first 4 turns of this deck and how you can actually get Ulamog, Kozilek, or Void Winnower, depending on your opponent, whichever one you choose, out on turn 4. So, for this play, our turn 1 is one of our mix lands. It's our Fortified Village, revealing a card in our hand. Tap Fortified Village for white and play a Thraben Inspector. Hopefully, they don't have any removal, and turn 2, you're able to go again. Turn 2, we're going to play a second land, doesn't really matter what it is. Tap 2 for 1 for green, play Cryptolith Rite, then we're going to be tapping our Thraben Inspector for a white to play a second Thraben Inspector. We now have 2 clues on the field, and 2 Thraben Inspectors, and 2 land. Next turn, we're going to untap everything. We're going to play another land. We are going to tap 5, which is the 2 Thraben Inspectors, and 3 mana for a Tamiyo's Journal. That's it for the turn. We're going to move on. We're going to take whatever damage we have to take, and then turn 4 comes along. This turn, we're untapping all our land. We're untapping our 2 Thraben Inspectors. We are gaining a 3rd clue from our Tamiyo's Journal. That's really key. We're gaining our 3rd clue from our Tamiyo's Journal. And then we are tapping Tamiyo's Journal to search through our deck. Now, if we've got one of our big creatures in hand, but we don't have a Briarbridge Patrol in hand, we go through our deck, pull out a Briarbridge Patrol, and get ready to play it. If we have our Briarbridge Patrol in hand, but no big creature, we go through our deck, we're going to pull out our huge creature, our Ulamog, our Void Winnower, our Kozilek. We're going to put that in hand, and then we're going to tap 4 mana, play our Briarbridge Patrol, and enter our end step. Now, in our end step, because Briarbridge Patrol is present, and we did sacrifice 3 clues with Tamiyo's Journal, we are then putting Ulamog, Kozilek, or Void Winnower on the table turn 4. Now, this is a lot faster than any of those ramp decks you're going to see. This is the fastest Ulamog in the West. It is an amazing play to do. It is so satisfying, and this deck really does perform against some tier 1 decks. It also does suffer against other tier 1 decks. I'm not saying I've made the best deck ever. It's just a ton of fun to play. I hope you guys enjoyed this slightly different video. And by slightly different, I mean vastly different from anything on my channel. If you want to see more Magic content, it's probably maybe not going to happen, but like the video and comment down below. I guess if this does overwhelmingly well, I'll give you guys some more. I've got another version of this deck that uses blue and green instead of white and green, and then I've got another deck which also uses clues, blue and green again, to mill people, which is super fun. I might do those if you guys really want me to. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoy a bit of diversity on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.